Hi, this is James O'Keefe. I'm captain of the Massachusetts Pirate Party, and I want to welcome you to a new Pirate News. Today, it's just me and Steve. How are things going, Steve?
Not bad.
Any good weekend plans?
There's I have some desk work tomorrow. I went on a bike ride earlier today, had a burrito, stuff like that. It's low key. The important thing about weekends is not to work.
Yes.
Thank you, labor unions.
Tomorrow, of course, is the 4th of July, and we want to say, hope you have a wonderful 4th of July, a happy Independence Day. I know it doesn't always feel like it's really independence, considering some of the stuff that has come up lately, but we just wanted to wish you a happy Independence Day. Speaking of what has come up lately, we've had a couple of Supreme Court rulings and some signals of cases that they will be taking up next year. Do you want to give a quick rundown, Steve?
So the most significant one is obviously the Roe decision, or repealing the Roe decision from 50 years ago, which kind of throws a whole lot of balls up in the air. And where you had generally, though not completely, equal access to abortion and reproductive health care for women across the United States. Now it's very much hit or miss. If you live on the coast, you're generally in good shape. If you live in the in the middle of the country, it's not so good. It's we'll just say it sucks. It's unfortunate on a number of levels. It's going. I think it turns. We're in Massachusetts. We're pretty lucky. Our governor signed an executive order protecting women's right to reproductive health care shortly after the decision was made. Other states did the opposite. So one of the things, so the access to this is really going to depend on where you live. And for women who are in Texas or Oklahoma or Missouri, where they've pretty much closed off access, it's going to be a case of those who have the resources to travel will be able to still get the procedures, and those who won't. I think there are some technical points about it, and this is, I do not have a medical background, but some of the complications that could arise during pregnancy that where the actually going through with a birth would threaten the mother, and the child would likely not be unviable. It's now, in some states, I understand it's a case where the doctors, in order to avoid prosecution, they actually want to wait until things progress to the point where the mother's life is in danger before terminating the pregnancy, or what would be the inviable pregnancy. So it's I think this is a big step backwards for the position of women in society in America, and I think that. And I'm hoping that Congress can do something to address this, at least in the, near to medium term. I don't know, your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I for me, this is a complete attack on everyone's bodily autonomy, right? I mean, the Fourth Amendment is clear. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects, their persons. It's right there in the Fourth Amendment. Right to privacy is right there. Right to bodily autonomy is right in the Fourth Amendment. So to have the Supreme Court go and say, oh no, we looked back to the 1880s and and they banned abortion, so that's good enough for us doesn't make any sense if you go even further back. If you go back to pre-revolutionary, post-revolutionary United States, abortions were allowed. It was no big deal. And now, instead, as you pointed out, right, if a woman has even an ectopic pregnancy, that is when the fetus doesn't implant in the uterus, but it implants in the fallopian tube, then that's going to kill a woman and it's going to kill the fetus. In that scenario, they can't operate unless, she's going to die and we have to operate, which is the most ludicrous thing I've heard in my entire life. But we know it's not going to stop here. We know they're planning to go after trans rights, to, the rights of trans people to transition to the gender of their choice, and to receive the medication and surgery they would need to do that. They're not just going after kids.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to go after adults as well. And, why stop there? That's some of the things that Thomas, in Thomas's, in his written comments, he's like, yeah, let's go after gay rights. Let's go after contraception. Strangely enough, he didn't say, let's go after, interracial marriage. Maybe he's a little biased in that, and even he recognizes that would be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. I know there's, I mean, it's one of the things that we've had the advantage of over the last couple of decades is being able to rely on, the courts to do things that, Congress has not. And clearly we're kind of out of that period for now. I do hope to see the, one of the arguments for keeping the filibuster was, well, you don't want to, big changes in the law just because one party has a majority. The Supreme Court has already shown us that they're willing to make big changes on a dime. So I really hope the Senate can get rid of that. And, there may be a little bit of whiplash from that. And, to the extent that things like regulatory requirements are left up to the states, and this makes puts businesses in a difficult position. I'm hoping that, this is America. We have the best government that money can buy, and money is speech. And in a way, I'd like to. I'm hoping that there are some corporations that could be sort of moderating factors. But one of the things that this is sort of tangential, but I think is worth noting is that over the last couple of years, it's sort of been clear to me that Republican voters vote for the cause, even if they think the candidate is crap. And that was definitely the case with President Trump, but he delivered for the cause, so to speak.
Certainly delivered tax cuts.
Yeah.
Off.
And his Supreme Court picks. Part of me would hope that the non-Republican factions could kind of come to the realization that's what's going on. That said, I would also like to see some better candidates or candidates who are not so comfortable with the status quo. End of Grant.
And just as a reminder, if I can, since it's our show, we're always looking for candidates, and we're always willing to help you plan your campaign, as well as train you and your volunteers and other folks you can get to be activists or organizers in your campaign. I've run for office twice for Treasurer and Receiver General in Massachusetts, and got hundreds of thousands of votes. So, there's knowledge within myself, Steve, others within the party. Just check us out at masspirates.org. There's a menu item about being a candidate, and we'd love to, have you join us, as long as you're not a fascist.
Mm-hmm. No Nazis.
No Nazis.
Nazis out.
I mean, the other thing that we saw well, there were a bunch of rulings that came out from like making sure people can't go and sue the government if their Miranda, if they weren't given, if their Miranda rights were not exercised, for example. But they also went after the EPA and prevented the EPA from going and regulating CO2 because, that wasn't explicitly in the bill that created the EPA. Although strangely, they create other stuff out of their ass. So, they have no problem doing that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think will be interesting to watch is, we do have a form of government, or our Constitution provides for checks and balances among the three branches. So I'm very interested in seeing what, if anything, that the legislative and executive branches do to check the power of the courts. I believe this came up during one of FDR's presidencies, and there was talk about expanding the court or making all of their opinions not so much law but just opinions. So they're, and the court backed off. So I hope that I hope that the other two branches will be willing to show a little backbone here.
I mean, I look at the rule that it requires 60 votes for certain bills in order to pass legislation. And we know the Senate is already disproportionately, it's even more disproportionately weighted towards smaller states than the House. And it's amazing to me that at least some Democrats are, and in general, it feels like the whole Democratic Party is willing to hold this norm of, we need these 60 votes because, well, if the Republicans try and pass something, then we want to be able to stop them. And it's like, that didn't stop you with the Patriot Act. And the Republicans have shown themselves quite willing to go and change. It only takes the majority to get rid of the filibuster,
right,
for any particular class of legislation. So the Republicans will do that. If they regain the House and the Senate and the presidency, they're going to do their darndest. They'll pull whatever they need to do to just outright ban abortion if they need to. If they want to, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
They can try. It's one of these things where the notion that criminalizing human behavior prevents people from doing it, when we know that's really not the case. Our
alcohol, drugs.
Well, we are the boneheads that decided that we're going to pass a constitutional amendment to prohibit the manufacture, sale, or transportation of alcohol. Now, granted, I understand that at that point in time there was a lot of problem with alcoholism in the United States, but basically, one thing that this laid the groundwork for was, frankly, a lot of organized crime, bootleggers. And, well, the interesting social impact, it also set up a scenario where men and women could drink in the same places, which was not a thing beforehand. The war on drugs, we've been losing that since the 1980s.
So many metrics.
They're on so many metrics, criminalizing sex work. It just sets up a case where A, people are going to do it anyway. B, the law is going to be unevenly enforced, and it will be enforced more stringently against certain groups than others. Right. If you're if you are affluent and white and, male, you have little to worry about. And if you don't fit that demographic, it sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're wealthy, then A, you're unlikely to be considered. B, if you are considered, then you're going to have the best legal counsel you can possibly get. And then to top it off, you got judges who are like, oh, hey, even though this guy raped a woman, we should think about his future. Yeah, we should think about his future in jail. It just amazes me the degree to which people are willing to cut certain people's slack and throw the book at others. I mean, I think we talked a couple of weeks ago about the Supreme Court and how they basically said cops have the discretion to choose which crimes they go after, and that they're not, even though the law explicitly says, hey, you got to protect someone. If they have a protective order from their ex-spouse or whatever, or their husband, the police can just choose not to do that, either through willful choice or negligence or whatever.
Oh yeah, from I don't remember the name of the case, but the basic gist I recall from the opinion was that law enforcement agencies have a finite amount of resources, and they have discretion as to how to use those resources. So if you're not a priority, or if they don't consider it a priority at the interim, at that moment in time, they have discretion to do something else.
Which is all the more reason why we could really use pirates running for sheriff. Because if you have that discretion, you can choose not to arrest someone because they were doing low-level, sex work or selling drugs. You don't have to go and evict someone. You can be like, yeah, that's not our requirement. Or you could say, well, if you want us to help you evict someone, you have to pay us $5,000, and we're just going to turn that money over to the people who you're evicting. Nothing wrong with that. So if you're interested, send us an email at info@masspirates.org, and we'll tell you how to run.
Yeah, we'd love to see a sheriff.
Speaking of people we don't want to run, so apparently the Boston area was blighted by a bunch of fascists. Have you heard what happened with that a few days ago?
Yeah, I think the term of art, and I'll quote our former first officer, Splendid Spoon, there were Nazi cucks. So this is a white supremacist group called Patriot Front, and if you are in Massachusetts, is not, it's a fairly liberal state. Sure, we have the occasional white supremacist here and there, but that's not
have a really awful history. We'll say that.
Oh yeah,
Boston still has a lot of racist streaks.
Oh, absolutely.
That needs to be challenged.
But just in terms of we're not Alabama. We're not Alabama or Mississippi or et cetera, et cetera.
Busing is still an issue.
Yeah. So,
and the after effects, but yeah. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the things that you generally don't see very often here are, you see the occasional white supremacist demonstration, but there's usually a counter to it. Well, so yesterday there were about 100 of them marching through. One newspaper called it the heart of downtown Boston, but downtown is kind of more like the tourist areas. I think that like Roxbury and Dorchester might be more the heart of Boston, and I don't see them marching there.
No. They'd get what for if they did that.
But you see 100 guys with the uniform of the white face mask and the glasses and the cap, and And
the
that's what
polo shirt and the
yeah, it
tan
kind of
pants.
raises your attention. Well, it turns out, and I have to give some credit to Splendid Spoon, who I mentioned earlier, and her colleague Rod Weber for doing some really great open source journalism on this. It turns out that these hundred or so folks, they were not from Massachusetts. They were not from the Boston area. They came from all over the country. So they came from Texas, they came from Utah, they came from Michigan. And, they basically met up in Malden, took the subway into Back Bay Station, and then, did a little march along the Freedom Trail. How ironic. So anyway, the Lauren or Spoon and Rod did a rather nice job at, they got back to Oak Grove to just sort of, meet them when they were coming back off, and had a chance to interact with them and just do some, I guess you could call it, your little bit of chud busting, right? But, it's, I have to, I wasn't aware that this was coming, and I mean, they may have been, people who are follow it more closely may have been aware. It is important to turn out to, to do counter demonstrations against this kind of thing. They were sort of doing it almost single-handedly with a few people, but there was still, to some degree, they made it quite clear that Nazis were not welcome in Boston. And Rod's a little bit of a ball buster, so he's a funny guy. We should get them on on our, one of our meetings.
That would
or
be
one
great.
of our podcasts.
I'd love to have them on.
Yeah, we are lucky to have them.
That we are.
Yeah, they're basically the Nazis, when they were going to the cars, they did the thing where, you stand in front of the plates. Of course, they had already filmed the plates before they got there. So it's like, yeah, we've got all this information. And, some of the stuff I've seen on social media, it's like people are already, they recognize this person or that one, or they, you use a data broker to find out who's got this plate. Some of them are, rent-a-cars, but not all of them. So, hopefully we'll have some luck at getting these folks identified, just so we know who we're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like they're there, they're masked up, they've got glasses on. As you said, they're standing in front of license plates and stuff to block people recording. I'm like, guys, have a little more pride. If you're emulating if you're emulating the Nazis in Germany, they didn't do this shit. They were proud of themselves. Man.
Oh
yeah. But they know, that's why identifying them and showing people who they are is important, because it prevents they're trying to hide in the shadows, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're either trying to join the Republican Party and be some position of authority there, or they've got friends and family who aren't going to be happy that they're hanging around with a bunch of Nazis. And hey, we've got to tell them it's not cool to hang around with a bunch of Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't cool in 1933, and it ain't cool now.
Well, no, there's one of the actually on PBS, they've been airing sort of a drama series about the 62 group in the UK, and this was one of the the British anti-fascist groups. Their style was just sort of no platforming, which means that when the Nazis come out in public, you meet them face to face, and just make it not worth their while. Just make it a hassle for them to be out in public. And it was the direct action counter. It's effective.
Absolutely. We need more of that. And we've got good folks who are doing it, from Antifa, Rob, Splendid Spoon, and everyone else. So be out there, be proud, be pirate, be anti-fascist, because we've got a GOP that's moving that way rapidly.
Yeah,
So.
I'm not interested in seeing the formation of the Christian Taliban, but I think that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like using the term Taliban, but certainly there is a like Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, man, not what we should be emulating.
No, I think that's actually their words at this point.
Is it?
So
Okay, fuck them. Okay, well, with that, we hope you all have a wonderful 4th and that you aren't, in fact, having to work that day. We all need more longer weekends, certainly. And, you can find us at masspirates.org. Please share this with your friends. If you like it, please give us an up arrow. Well, I guess it's a thumbs up, right?
Not an thumbs up arrow.
I guess the new thing on Twitter is an up arrow, down arrow, whatever. And as always, if we work on this every week, generally, fairly consistently. And if you want to be notified, please subscribe. Please click that bell. We'll be back here next week, next Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So again, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe, fight the good fight, and be a pirate. Arr.